Awesome. I am deeply honored and super, super grateful to be here today. I'm really grateful to be gifted with this opportunity to come into the heart space to share about Ayurveda, which I can talk about all day, every day. And really, I'm honored and really excited and become super, super ignited. So don't mind me if I get a little loud at times. I get really excited about Ayurveda all of a sudden. I'll try my best to keep myself calm so that you can feel grounded with my energy. But ultimately, I feel super, super ignited and on fire when discussing and sharing about this holistic lifestyle model that we can use to support our health as women through every single stage of our life in a natural, toxic-free, and more connected way. And so before we really dive into the juicy shits, I want to take a moment to honor my teachers and honor every single soul that has walked this path of Ayurveda, yoga, and spirituality, and connection and embodiment before me and before all of us. I want to take a moment to honor our ancestors and the people that are going to come after us, because by us tapping into this work now, we are actually creating a ripple effect for those who are coming after us. So maybe you'd like to just take a moment to situate yourself in the heart and connect to gratitude for someone in your life that you feel inspired by, or someone in your life that you feel that has guided you, or perhaps that person yanked you out of a really, really dark and heavy, challenging moment. And so you can bring that person or that energy, or even that collective group, into your heart. And just know that this prayer is just a prayer of gratitude and honoring of those souls. Om Gyana Dimirandasya Gyananana Shalakaya. Shakshuran Milidam Yanatasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I invite you to stay situated where you are. Maybe your eyes are closed, and then maybe they're focused outwards somewhere pleasant. But allow yourself to settle back into your breath. And just notice what the breath can teach you right now as you receive it into your body, into your health. Maybe you are becoming more aware of what it is that it feels like to inhabit your body today. And it's completely different than what it felt like yesterday, maybe even moments before this. So just tune into that space right now. And what is real, what is true for you right now? Maybe there are physical sensations that are present. Maybe there are feelings, emotions moving through the heart. Thoughts, images, words, ideas, limiting beliefs, even in the mind. Maybe there's a lack of all of this. You're feeling an inner silence. And so if you are, I invite you to just simply enjoy that and be the witness. And in all sorts of ways, really embody this embrace of non-judgmental awareness to everything that you're perceiving right now in this moment. Because nothing really lasts forever. Everything is temporary. So even the joy will transition. The fear will transform itself. And oftentimes pain shifts into power. And so maybe in this moment of time, you can just take a seat back and just witness the experience of your body, mind, and heart with a little bit of detachment. Not neglect, but detachment. So a healthy separation. Be the witness of what is unfolding for you. Because this is the only place and this is the only seat in which we can now say, life is happening for me and not to me. Let's take a couple more breaths, maybe let them out through a sigh. Maybe bring movement into the body in a particular place where you need it. And so that all aspects of you feel tended to. And all emotions, all feelings, all thoughts that are moving through can be seen, felt, and released. Whenever you're ready, palms can soften at the heart space, maybe in prayer, maybe just one over the other. And once again, drop back down into gratitude. What are you grateful for today? What makes you feel ignited? What makes your soul shine? And see if you can remember that throughout the rest of your evening, that no matter what happens here or after this, you have an anchor, you have a steady ground to come back to. Whenever you're ready, you can slowly bring a little bit of movement back into the hands. Maybe allow them to rest down onto your lap or the surface that you can choose in front of you. Perceive yourself in this space. Become aware of how your body's interacting with your space. And then eventually eyes can flutter open and you can connect back to your surroundings, maybe looking around in your room, taking in all the objects, all the colors, all the textures, all the elements. Maybe noticing if there's something that sparks up your curiosity or there's a desire of love and attraction. Maybe something reminds you of nature, and that's why you have it there. And then eventually bring yourself back here into this online room. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being here. Ooh, I'm excited. So let's dive right into it. So I'm going to give you a brief overview on what Ayurveda and these governing forces called doshas are, so that we can now then dive into an understanding of how Ayurveda begins to create a model for women's health, how it supports our menstruation, how it prepares us for premenopause and the menopause stage of our life. And then ultimately, we'll talk a little bit about herbs, oils, and the types of food, as well as different sources of support that we can invite into our lives to support our cyclical nature. And ultimately, my goal is that you can walk away from this course and from this call knowing a basic understanding of what you can do or what you can let go of in your life in order for you to support yourself in every stage of womanhood. So that sounds okay? Awesome. So who's new to Ayurveda? Okay, great. And who has like a little bit of an understanding, maybe like the doshas, maybe like what to eat for how we feel, or perhaps even like how the doshas come up in the season? Yeah, awesome. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper than that. So I'm excited. As many of you know, Ayurveda is yoga's sister science. And so it's a 5,000-year-old system of natural healing that is rooted in the ancient culture of India. What I love about it is that more than a mere system of treating illness, Ayurveda is almost like preventative medicine. It's the science of life. Oops, we got another one. And being a science of life, it is guiding us not only towards vibrant health and physical mental health, but also a deeper connection to spirit, which is witnessed easily in nature and can be further reached through the connection with our own inner nature. Hey, Anna Maria. So Ayurveda is, and I said this in our breathwork training, Ayurveda is like ancient common sense, and it exists within us. This is why oftentimes learning and studying about Ayurveda is a process of remembrance. Being the science of life, as we witness the divine flow of nature that exists all around us, for some of us, not as much if you live in a city, but we can be in touch with those flows, even if it's challenging or hard. But being in tune with that allows us to master the Ayurvedic lifestyle. And we extract more of what it offers because we are in nature, because we're actually part of it. We are nature. We're never separate from it. It may feel like we are, but we're always in connection to it because we are it. We are life happening in human form, just like plants are life happening in nature form. And so Ayurveda offers a body of wisdom designed to help you stay vital while realizing your full human potential. It's going to be providing guidelines on ideal seasonal as well as daily routine, diet, behavior, proper use of our senses, because this science acknowledges that in order to have perfect health, we must take into account wellness of mind, body, the senses, our deepest desires, and the soul. So rather than a disjointed system, Ayurveda is approaching the whole person, you, as an individual, maintaining health in the areas where you have it, and then tackling and restoring balance where there's disconnection, which is ultimately dis-ease. So I want us to start thinking about disconnection, or perhaps even the word that is thrown out there a lot in the medical industry, dis-ease is really just merely disconnection. And so being the science or study of matter, it is meant to be practiced together with yoga so that we can understand the cause and effect of our existence. As mentioned before, it's going to embrace the four components of the human experience: the senses, the mind, the body, which comes along with desires, and the soul, which also is deeply attached to our deepest purposeful desires. And so because we know that even if our physical body is healthy or feeling strong, but our mind is stressed and dwelling in anxiety, we won't feel like we have our fullest potential. We won't feel inspired. Even if our body and mind is sharp and aligned, if we lack spiritual nourishment, we won't really feel motivated or empowered to go seek and exercise our purpose. And so really total wellness is when we're fueling our mind, our body, and our soul, while understanding that the health of your personal relationships, the extent that you're living your purpose, and your connection to the divine source all have an effect on your health or dis-ease of the whole person, which is you. Does that make sense? Amazing. So recognizing our true nature as the soul, which is really the core belief within yoga and Ayurveda. Ayurveda's goal is to reach balance and health in the physical body so that we can be vibrant enough to engage and experience our life fully. And we can live and experience our lives fully when we are situated in the soul and when we come forth from a very heart-centered place. I mean, this is why we are here in the heart. So the system of Ayurveda and Ayurvedic medicine is based on the qualities of nature. Qualities are also gunas. So I'm going to be throwing this concept here and there. So just know that Gunas is a Sanskrit word that is talking about the different qualities of nature. It is the combination of these gunas or qualities that differentiate the 5 elements that we find in the world: earth, water, fire, earth, and ether. So these elements in turn make up of the 3 doshas that Ayurveda uses to see the world through and categorize everything in the world of matter through. These are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. We'll talk about those in a mere moment. How's everybody doing so far? During lunch, baby girl, or dinner? You're back in New York. And so the various gunas, which can be considered under the spectrum of heaviness, temperature, texture, density, subtlety, movement, rhythm, these are found everywhere in nature, including the seasons. These gunas or qualities directly affect our body, our mind, and our health. And so it is very important and is very helpful to understand the qualities that may be present in our body and in our mind, as well as the qualities that are present in our environment, which are going to be different for all of us, so that we can adjust our diet and our lifestyle in order to maintain optimum health and well-being. So again, Ayurveda categorizes everything in the world of matter under these 3 doshas: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Let's talk about what a dosha really is. Now, a dosha, which literally translates into at fault, is an organizing energy. or a biological blueprint, which each and every one of us carries. This is more like our constitution by birth. So each and every one of us will have a different constitution. Thus, Ayurveda is really looking at health based on the individual, and it's very individualized diet, activity, and rest that will be prescribed for you. Now, these doshas are found in everything that exists within the world of matter, from food to the stages of life to the times of day and into the seasons of each year. And because everything is made up of matter, our body, our mind, and the environment will carry a different combination of these doshas in order to land within each. And so let's talk a little bit about the dosha so that we can have an overview and then go into women's health so that we can then start to identify what Ayurveda is actually inviting you to look at, the imbalances. Vatadosha, it's a combination of air and space. So some of the gunas and the qualities that are found under Vata is airy, dry, cold, subtle, mobile, very fast, and kind of quiet. Vata types can be a little thin, can be lanky build. They're the creative and the spontaneous people of the group. They're mentally and physically active. They're very fast. They run cold. Their hands and feet are almost always cold. They love to travel. They love to meet new people. They go with the flow, and they hate structure. They thrive out of just creating and moving and with the spontaneous flow. Now, Vata dosha imbalance. Some of the physical qualities can be dry and cracking skin, dry and cracking joints, dry nails and hair, a lot of gas and bloating, constipation, and even irregular periods. Some of the mental and emotional qualities that we find when Vata is imbalanced is insomnia, inability to focus, a lot of anxiety that lingers, and the feeling of isolation, feeling of fear. Now, Vata dosha also includes processes in our physiology responsible for cell division and cell signaling. This can be traced back to its quality of movement and communication. So in all of the levels of the physiology, it's also governing the excretion of waste. So that includes urine, our poop, and our bleed. And it's also governing cognition. And within that, Vata is oftentimes the first one to be treated because it regulates the activities of Kapha and Pitta dosha. So we can start to feel the different qualities and a kind of sort of like a basic understanding of Vata dosha and how it shows up? When we think about Vata, can we associate 2 seasons to it of the year? Maybe fall and winter time. And then also Vata has a particular time during our day, and it will come up twice. And Vata times are usually between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. And so in the morning time, Vata can be an excellent time to meditate, to get creative, to actually tend to the mind that feels restless at all times. And in the afternoon, because there's a lot of movement, but there's a decrease in that energy, we can experience that tiredness or lethargy. So oftentimes during that 2 to 6 is the time that most people go for that second or even 10th coffee cup. We feel that energy of, ugh, I'm tired, I'm heavy, right? Anybody ever experienced that? Yeah. Anybody feeling like Vata is a dosha that is prominent in my constitution? Yeah, can totally see that for sure. So jumping into Kapha. Kapha dosha is a combination of water and earth. And because of these 2 elements, some of the qualities or gunas can be cool, heavy, wet, moist, a little bit dull or slow, and very, very stable. Kapha types are strong and full framed. They're compassionate and very loving. They're incredibly nurturing, loyal, and stable. They're the people that perhaps take a little bit of time into learning things or getting the hold of things. But then once learned, it stays learned forever, is engraved and coded in their brain. And they prefer routine. They thrive with consistency. So they hate the go with the flow Vata types. Kapha dosha imbalance in physical qualities can show up as a lot of cold, cough, and congestion, a lot of allergies and very poor digestion. Can be a lot of water retention and weight gaining, excessive blood clots during our bleed and menstruation. Kapha dosha is closely related to the lymphatic and the immune system in our body. And so it's responsible for the growth of the individual. It is going to be governing our development, the lubrication and moisture of the deeper tissues in the body and the mind. And so it's also found in the coding of our nervous system. These are our memories. Thus, our entire experience of life, everything that we've lived is coded in our nervous system. Getting a feel of Kapha? What kind of season can we kind of sort of like address Kapha time? Spring, for sure. I see you singing, Jessica. Spring. It's also allergy seasons. It's also the cold and flu season. And that's why it invites an excess of lubrication. There's a lot of stagnancy from the cold of the winter. All of a sudden, the warmth of spring starts to open up our channels within. And then everything that has been frozen becomes stuck and stagnant. And so Kapha itself is something that we'll want to invite a lot of mobility into, a lot of energizing, a lot of stimulation into in order to bring it back into balance. Kapha times are going to be between 6 and 10 a.m. or p.m. And so Kapha is what helps us fall asleep. It's also, you know, in the yogic and Ayurvedic lifestyle suggested to awaken before 6, awaken with the sun, because Kapha is heavy. And even if you get 10 hours of sleep, you wake up during Kapha times and you'll feel exhausted and heavy. Has anybody ever like gone through like 10 hours of sleep and then wake up at 7 still and you feel exhausted? You wake up at 9 a.m. after getting 8 hours of sleep and you feel exhausted. So it's because the energy that is being governed during that time of day is very heavy, it's Kapha. Now, when we talk about Pitta, Pitta is a combination of fire and water. And so Pitta Gunas or qualities are going to be hot, oily, bright, sharp, intense. Pitta types are medium and muscular build. They can be very intense and strong-willed. They're often leaders and great public speakers. They can be super intelligent and productive. They prefer challenging and competition, and they approach both the professional and personal life as well as passion and their creativity with that kind of energy of competitiveness. And even if we're not really thinking about it, we just approach it and our energy comes off as that. I'm definitely very Pitta prominent. So some of the imbalances in the physical qualities of Pitta are extreme judgmental nature. Too much desire to control. You are a good leader, so you think you can control the world. We can have a lot of inflammation, skin rashes, acne, hives, acid reflux, heartburn. We can have such a strong digestive fire that it leads up to loose stool and diarrhea because we're not actually digesting our food process properly. We're just burning it right through. We can have burning and itchy, irritated eyes, and excessive and extended bleeding during menstrual cycle. Some of the mental and emotional qualities can be lingering anger and frustration, agitation and impatience that lingers, that is triggered by just the simplest of things. We feel extremely competitive and incredibly critical. We can be intense and impulsive at times. And again, that over-controlling nature just takes over to the extent where we begin to control everything outside of ourselves and our relationship. So before we move forward, getting a hold of Pitta, clearly the season is summer, and the times are that 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., as well as 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. So this is why when the sun is at its highest, our digestion will be at its highest, our pitta will be at its highest. This is also why if we don't fall asleep or prepare ourselves for evening rituals before 10, we get that nice evening boost, and all of a sudden we're at 2 a.m. and can't fall asleep. And we just power through the day. Anybody been there before? I feel you, Gabrielle. You've been there before. Exactly. And so being mindful of these things can give us such an empowering experience of life, because once we know, we can make a decision that serves. Now, before we move forward, I want to make mention of the simplest and greatest of rules through Ayurveda. It is that like increases like, and opposites are the only thing that brings us into balance. And so as we further study the different qualities of each dosha, please keep this in mind when recognizing the presence within you and your world of these doshas. So, according to Ayurveda, different stages of our life are deeply influenced by each of these three doshas, Vata, Pitta, Kapha. So childhood, which is the first stage, is governed by Kapha dosha. We experience a lot of lubrication, development, a lot of stability, and even some stagnancy. The second stage, from puberty up to an average age of 50, is governed by Pitta dosha. This is our adult life. This is when ideally we start to create a life for ourselves. We start to seek for purpose. We start to ask our deeper questions like, why am I here? What am I meant to do? And what the fuck do I want to do with my life? Then the third stage, which is from an average of 50 until death, it's governed by Vata dosha. This is when our body begins to dry out. Even our hormones start to cease. Our mental processes begin to dimmer. And so Vata is governing this transition, which can be a very graceful one if we just embrace it as it is. Now, while this perspective might seem obscure and complex at first, when we take a closer look to these correlations, they're actually very intuitive. Now, this is why I said before that Ayurveda really is just ancient common sense. As we start to dive deeper into it and we hear it, we listen to it, we realize like, duh, I knew this all along. And in fact, this frame of reference can be very useful in helping us appreciate both our strengths and our vulnerabilities as we grow, age, and mature. And that's the goal, right? To age gracefully, to move through life in a graceful way. So, and going a little bit deeper into Ayurveda and women's health. In Ayurveda, the woman is considered to be Shakti, the mother and the source of creation, in whose lap all of civilization is actually cradled. This is the belief in the yogic philosophy. This is the belief in Vedic wisdom. When we speak about women's health, we understand that this encompasses many different issues during the different stages of our life. Every woman goes through a series of profound changes during her lifetime. The primary changes are called menarche, pregnancy, postpartum, and menopause. 4 unique organs make up the woman, make the woman very, very special. These are the clitoris, literally the only organ in the human history of existence that is there only for the mere purpose of pleasure. The uterus, ovaries, and the breast. Now, the vagina, of course, is another organ that plays a major part in every aspect of women's health, but I actually want to start reclaiming the word pussy, because vagina doesn't come close. It falls short. It actually doesn't even cover all the organs that exist in our woman's anatomy. And so pussy is the word that I'm going to start to refer to if I come up and back into that concept. Hope it's not offensive, and if it is, maybe ask yourself why. Now, female hormones are equally important factors as they play a vital role in our various physiological and emotional changes. Estrogen, progesterone, and prolactin are the primary female hormones, and these are the primary hormones that we're going to be talking about today. These are the primary female hormones affecting our woman's health. And so there are also some amounts of testosterone in the woman's body that play a great role during menopause. And besides these hormones, FSH are the initials for follicular stimulation hormone, and then LH, which is luteinizing hormone, is also very important to secrete, that are secreted by the pituitary gland. And so while the ovary is capable of forming and releasing both estrogen and progesterone by itself, it is also the reservoir of an ova or an egg cell. But Ayurveda doesn't really talk in terms of hormones. It has its own unique language. It has its own unique terms. And so hormones really are considered as Dhatu Agni. I'm going to type that right in the chat for you. Yep, not typing. You got one more. There you go. Dhatu Agni. And so Dhatu Agni, which is translated into a fire element in the tissue, this is carried by the blood. Hey, Mindy. Good to have you here. Thanks for being here. This is going to be carried by the blood, which is associated with the Pitta dosha. So therefore, these are going to be considered components of Pitta itself. Everything related to our hormones is going to be considered an element or a component of Pitta dosha. So the way to balance that is going to be by addressing how to balance Pitta in the body, in the mind, and in the overall experience of our human experience of woman. Dietary and behavioral activities bring many changes to the blood. So for example, if a Pitta type woman eats plenty of hot, spicy, and acidic foods, while indulging in very Pitta aggravating activities such as playing in the sun or engaging in very fast-paced movement and very intense tasks, or even hot tub baths, getting extremely angry or irritated, she will begin to aggravate the Pitta in her blood. This can cause excessive bleeding during our menstruation, or even lead to actual monorrhagia, which is a disease of uncontrollable bleeding throughout our entire stage of womanhood. Now, as another example, after the age of 40, the body begins to move towards the Vata stage of life, right? And so it moves away from the Pitta stage of life, that intensity of actually creating and doing in the world. And so during this period, if Vata type women do not sleep well, they work until late hours or at late nights, eat plenty of cold foods and salads, and eliminate sweets out of her diet. Eliminate sweets, and not only sweets actually, but salt and fats from her diet. She will most certainly aggravate Vata in both the blood and in the body. And so this will lead to a more difficult menopause syndrome and that transition into premenopausal stages. It will lead to severe cramping during our menstrual bleed and overall a sense of anxiety and ungroundedness throughout our entire life. And so in the same way, when a Kapha type woman is excessively indulging in sweets, rich foods, eats plenty of dairy products and nuts, which are actually very heavy, and lives a very sedentary lifestyle during premenopause, she will be accumulating an excess of mucus in her blood and her body, which can lead up to tumors and mental conditions just such as depression. As we start to invite that the same qualities that are like Kapha during that Kapha period of our life, or during that Kapha period of our menstruation, which we'll talk about a little bit later, will increase the same dosha and the same symptoms that we have. So thinking back, like increases like, opposites will bring me back into balance. So by knowing one's prakriti, which is our true nature, which is our constitution, which is our primary dosha, one can plan and practice an appropriate daily and seasonal diet as well as behavioral regimen for us to actually thrive. With a simple effort, the body will maintain balance of the doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, really this balance is considered the healthy state of the human experience. Does that make sense? Awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about Ayurveda and menstruation. Who in here is bleeding? Not currently, but moving through the process of bleed. Okay. So the menstrual cycle is thought to go with the ebbs and waves of the lunar cycle, as the moon represents flow and the feminine. The lunar cycle is approximately 29.5 days, coinciding with the average length of a menstrual cycle for most ovulating women. You know, the healthiest flow, one that is most in tune with the lunar phases, will start on our new moon, with ovulation occurring around the time of the full moon. When the moon is full, it is at its peak energy. So it's pulling the egg from its home and into the ovary. A healthy menstruation, according to Ayurveda, lasts a few days and occurs between every 20 to 29 average days. The variations on this can occur due to imbalances in the dosha, which again are the mind and the body energies that are governing everything in the world of matter. Now, these three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, describe the forces of nature both inside and outside of our bodies, just as a review for humanity, and as well as of our genetic makeup. And so it is in our interest to make lifestyle choices that keep them in balance, particularly lifestyle choices. And the lifestyle choices, the pillars of a lifestyle choice in Ayurveda are diet, activity, and rest. And so as we start to look at that, we can actually start to bring forth the opposites that will bring us back into a state of balance. The doshas also come into play, and each will show its face and have the most impact in specific parts of our cycle. Thinking about Kapha and the Kapha qualities, keep them in mind. Kapha dominates the first half of the cycle. After menstruation, as the endometrium thickens and becomes more and more glandular. A woman gains the essence of Kapha during this time, the juiciness, the glow, the sense of peace, being settled within herself. This process is called Rutkala, which is a Sanskrit word that signifies the culmination of ovulation. Ovulation marks the beginning of the next phase. And this is the Rutavetata Kala. That is dominated by Pitta. Now, Pitta mainly acts through the blood tissue layers. And as such, the endometrium becomes more engorged with blood vessels in preparation for the potentially fertilized egg. Now, if the egg is not fertilized, the last phase, Rashakalat, arrives. Now, Shushruta, which is the legendary ancient Ayurvedic physician and surgeon, kind of eloquently described this process of the weeping cry of the vagina or the pussy for the deceased ovum. It is a sudden rise in Vatadosha that begins the menstrual period. And it's acting as the moving force that enables the flow of menstruation. Thinking about all of the qualities of Vata is mobile, it is subtle, it is dry, it is cold. These qualities are actually what impart the menstrual bleed itself. So as long as the doshas function optimally and aren't depleted or overshadowed by another dosha, the menstrual cycle functions optimally. And it'll mostly be encaptured by everything that we discussed previously in these three stages of menstruation. So to go deeper and to review, using the qualities or characteristics of the different doshas, we can describe the different and various stages of the menstrual cycle. Vata to the stage of bleeding and cramp. Kapha to the nourishing state until the uterus linings is nourished and the whole body is ready to receive the fertilized ovum. And then Pitta to the time after ovulation and the series of hormonal changes leading up to the bleeding phase. Now, based on this division, we can see why in the Vata phase, we may see the symptoms of pain and cramps and anxiousness, etc., if Vata is imbalanced. So this is something really interesting and important. How many of us grew up thinking that our cycle and our bleed will inevitably be filled with cramps, anxiousness, pain, discomfort, bloating, irregularities, and all of these things? Like, I know that I grew up learning to hate my period, learning that it was normal to be in pain, normal to think that cramps that lingered were actually part of the process. Well, actually, if we look up through it from an ancient womb healing perspective and from Vedic wisdoms like Ayurveda, all of these symptoms are just Vata imbalance. So during Kapha phase, we may experience lethargy, water retention, excessive heaviness, and even extended sadness. But again, these things are symptoms of Kapha imbalance. Pitta phase may make the person more emotionally irritated or even angry. Will bring forth physical symptoms of this heightened acidity, which can appear as blemishes, acne, spots, and our skin, amongst other symptoms, which can often be around the time leading to the menstrual bleed. And so again, while these things can happen, when they linger and they're consistent, it is just an imbalance in the Pitta dosha. So the most important focus should be on a sattvic lifestyle, and a sattvic meaning pure, aligned, harmonious, balanced. A sattvic lifestyle is what allows us to reconnect to the flow of nature. It is what allows us to link back to our circadian clock, which is back to the nature flow, especially the moon cycle for us women. The sattvic lifestyle is going to promote harmony to the body by means of fresh, seasonal, and well-cooked and easy to digest nutrition, as well as regularly eating, sleeping, and undergoing our various activities at the optimal times in a daily rhythm, which aligns with the day and night, the seasons, and throughout the year. Does that make sense? So it's important to think back at Kapha time, Kapha season, Vata times, Vata seasons, Pitta times, and Pitta seasons. Now from there, you can start to hone in on the details, using knowledge of the qualities or the different characteristics that we see of these doshas to determine where you can apply the principles of Ayurveda to help with these imbalances. So the principles of Ayurveda, main one that I want you to remember, like increases like, opposites will create balance. Of course, aggravated symptoms of all three doshas can be found in the same set of menstrual systems and the symptoms. And the aggravated doshas do not necessarily match your dominant genetic dosha, so AKA your unique constitution. So it's natural to sometimes experience these aggravated systems. After all, balance is a dynamic state, not something that we reach and we stay. We have to actively go after it every single moment, not day, every single moment of our lives. And so the good news is that overall, harmonious lifestyle promoted by Ayurveda as a prevention goes a long way to restoring our body's natural rhythm, or better known as the circadian rhythm. So moving from there into menopause, because we will inevitably experience that if we bleed. In Ayurveda, menopause is linked with aging. Aging, like I mentioned before, it's part of the last stage of life, or the Vata stage of life, right? So it's Vata predominant store of life. Thus, the symptoms of menopause experienced by some women are similar to the symptoms seen when the Vata dosha rises and is upset during the process of menstruation and during our entire experience of life itself. In a culture that tends to glorify youth and productivity, thinking about menopause and the changes that come can bring up a lot of fear. Navigating this time of life can be very challenging, to say the least, but it can also be a window of opportunity and a new beginning. It really, to me, from witnessing my mom and also my grandmother move through it, it can be a chance to realign with our values and prioritize our own well-being. We may have heard stories from our friends or our elders about their own trials through menopause. And for those of us who have yet to go through it, which is pretty much most of us, we end up feeling a little bit, resigned to a similar experience. For many of us, it conjures visions of hot flashes and dizziness and mood swings and long nights of lying awake and just overall discomfort and disability that I am drying up, or am I losing part of what makes me actually a woman? This is simply a misconception that has been engraved in our DNA and encoded in our nervous system, in our brain by society. Ultimately, menopause is an incredible, graceful experience because it is part of life. And so Ayurvedic texts do not refer to menopause as a disorder. In fact, menopause as disease is actually just known and relatively common in the West. It's really thought of as an experience, as a problematic experience here in the West. So during menopause, we know that levels of estrogen and progesterone, two powerful female hormones, drop. So both of these hormones provide two subtle yet very vital substances in our body, and you want to write this one down. Ojas. Ojas is a superfine substance that is responsible for building immunity, stability, and nourishment. As such, it can be seen as a very subtle and refined form of kapha. The very end product of nutrition in our body, after it passes through all of the 7 layers of tissues, or the dhatus, including the final layer of the reproductive organ, is ojas. Our immune system, which thrives when we have strong ojas, gives us the ability to tolerate our external environment, as well as the changes to our internal ecosystem. So it happens that those with low ojas are more prone to imbalances and dis-ease or illnesses throughout their entire stage of life. For instances, you will see that hot flashes, a lack of hormones, causes the temperature zone in which we feel comfortable to narrow substantially. This makes it difficult to remain within a comfortable temperature range during menopause. So the second of these two vital substances is tejas. Tejas is a refined version of Pitta. So it's going to act as a positive, subtle essence of Agni, or our digestive fire. It governs our intelligence, our discernment, our enthusiasm, and all types of digestion and transformation. So our digestion and transformation of emotions, thoughts, as well as our food. Without tejas, there is no guidance as to where pitta and heat should flow to, so it can serve its purpose. So ideally, the mind and the body by this point in life cycle have built enough intelligence to continue with these functions without necessarily needing hormones to guide it. But if tejas is lacking during previous stages leading up to menopause, we can surely be prone to imbalances or disease. So since hormones serve a vital pitta and kapha function, it is very important that these two doshas especially are balanced at a very healthy level when entering into menopause. Pitta should primarily reside in its home within the core, providing a solid source of Agni. Kapha should not be depleted, as it is nourishing all of our tissues so that they are not whisked away with the smallest of changes. During menopause, we are low in ojas, and so we have a lessened ability to maintain balance, even in the same environment and within the same stressors that we've been throughout our entire life or most of our life. So pair that with the erratic nature of Vata, and when unchecked, our body shifts into sympathetic overdrive. Our nervous system is a delicate balance of the sympathetic nervous system, a stress-oriented system that exists for self-preservation, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is it functions to relax and to renew the body after a threat. Right? So these two branches work as opposing yet complementary systems. Because of low ojas, menopause becomes a state of high sympathetic nervous system dominance. So cortisol levels increase, blood pressure increases, and the heart rate increases as well. During this state of stress, Pitta is going to be driven high throughout the body, and it's going to become ready to attack any threat. And so further this with the cessation of our monthly blood release, the menstrual cycle can be seen as a therapeutic cleansing or purification process for the blood. This is actually a process in Panchakarma. There's a process where the blood is let out of the body for the purpose of releasing an excess of Pitta. So let's think back. Pitta, or the blood and the hormones, are actually a process that is associated with Pitta, with fire. Our fire is in our blood. And so when there's a cessation in the blood, menopause, all of this Pitta is going to be accumulated. And when there is low ojas, this Pitta is not going to know where to go, thus is going to be leaking into our entire body, bringing forth an imbalance by increasing that energy in the body and the mind. And so in the ideal, healthy state of menopausal individual, we shift away from Pitta predominance mentally and physically, and we move towards or inch closer to a Vata predominance. In an ideal scenario of perfect health, the body will transition just fine, but with persistent Pitta activities and consistent activation of the hot and sharp sympathetic system, Pitta is going to remain trapped in the body. And in the end, what we're left off with is the following process. We have an elevated, ungrounded Vata dispersed throughout the body, carrying your core digestive fire, Agni, away from its home in the stomach and into the intestines. This is going to lead to difficulties with their digestion and overall nutrition. Secondly, the heat traveling in the circulatory system gives a rise to the hot flashes. It increases trouble sleep, and in an extreme case, can lead up to heart disease. So these are some of the symptoms that a lot of women commonly experience and collectively experience in menopause. And we can look back at the kind of society that we live here. A woman is never honored for her cyclical nature. We ourselves don't even understand that very much. We live in a society where we're forced to be like men. We are encouraged to be like men, lead like men, speak like men, act like men, work like men, when we're never going to be able to do that. And that is perfectly fine, because we are meant to lead, speak, work, and fuck like women do in the world. We're not meant to do it like men. We are meant to embrace our femininity and actually lead like women should in the world. But because we are in this quest for equality, which is important, but it's often misinterpreted, we are moving through an entire experience of life as an active male dominating energy and being. And so all of these symptoms are commonly experienced by women because we're not living life as we are actually meant to, situated in our feminine energy. So high Vata is going to also flow downward, drying out our pussy. High Vata in the colon and other deeper tissues can cause a dryness, and in extreme cases, it can lead to conditions such as osteoporosis. So superfine tejas, also decrease, leads to trouble with memory and concentration, as well as higher you know, possibilities for cancer and developing illnesses like chronic illnesses like this. Now, there is a path to a graceful menopause. And so while most studies are small or preliminary, there is a growing body of evidence and exciting initial findings to support an alternative approach to menopause that embodies nourishment, contentment, and balance. There is a growing support from herbalists and alternative practitioners in their care for reproductive health. A holistic approach not only eases many of the challenges that many of us are going to go through as we move through the menopause phase, but also empowers us to live with more joy and fulfillment, because a holistic approach is always taking care of you as a whole. It's not only taking care of only a branch or a joint of your existence. It really encaptures all of you: mind, body, desires, emotions, senses, and the soul. So ultimately, attaining the luminous, graceful menopause can be simplified into three main goals. Increase juiciness. Some kapha during menopause is a great thing, as long as it is balanced. Another way of increasing your juiciness, get ready, masturbate. Love up on yourself. Be your best lover. Powered by pleasure, a woman's chemistry changes. And when we are the providers of that pleasure, our entire experience of life changes. That doesn't mean don't go out and chase pleasure, because it's really nice to receive. But also take responsibility for your own experience of pleasure in life, because that will ultimately increase the juiciness and the radiance in your experience of womanhood. Next, be fucking calm. Bring Vata and Pitta back into balance by calming the sympathetic nervous system. The easiest and quickest, most approachable and equitable tool is regulate the breath. Lengthening the exhale and slowing down the pace of the breath will activate parasympathetic dominance. And the last one is strengthen your Agni, your digestive fire. When your Agni functions optimally, your whole body functions optimally, because it is well nourished and it has the intelligence that it needs in order to thrive. Now keep these goals in mind as you make your way through the basic pointers, which we'll discuss now. Remember the aggravating qualities of Vata, menopause: dry, rough, mobile, subtle, spreading, cold, and the opposing qualities. They're going to come into life as recommendations. Make peace with the past. Making peace with the past and creating acceptance for the present and future is the single most important element of our transition. There is nothing that drives out stress like anger, resentment, and irritation, especially when it's locked and lodged and connected to our past. So I invite you to take time and make space to make peace with yourself. All those that you have crossed paths with, and your life at large. Really take up on time and space to engage in practices that allows you to find that peace. Doing a monthly cleanse is incredible for women's health. And this monthly cleanse doesn't have to be a juice cleanse, which is just a little trendy thing floating around that is being exploded. While they're incredible, super efficient, we don't have to do them always to be stable or to feel actually lighter in ourselves. It might actually lead up to us feeling more depleted than when we entered. And so a monthly cleanse can be just as simple as eating easy to digest diet. And Ayurveda recommends a tridoshic khichdi. Anybody not familiar with khichdi? Okay, cool. Awesome. For those who are not familiar, I will leave my website after this on the chat because I have a bunch of recipes, and a recipe, like a main recipe for a Tridoshic khichdi is there. But also, if you recognize a particular quality that is imbalanced in your body, you can use specific herbs and foods to increase that and bring yourself back into balance. So it's under different doshas. And then another process of cleansing can be doing a daily abhyanga, which is a daily self-massage with warm oil. And doing this cleanse, whether it is on your diet or in that practical daily self-care routine, it's essential and perfect if we do it 4 days out of each month. It's going to be supportive for that cleansing process. So 4 days every month or every other month, it's perfect. The next is eating a Vata balancing diet when transitioning. A Vata balancing diet that does not aggravate Pitta. That is going to consist of warm, well-cooked foods, cooked with spices that aid digestion, such as cumin, fennel, coriander, saffron, turmeric, and hang. Support your acne. Have a teaspoon of grated ginger with lime and a pinch of salt before each meal. We did this at the breathwork training one day. Did anybody notice how we got hungrier? Or like at least our digestive fire started to move? Ginger is just, the shit. And so these types of spices and that spice combination of ginger, lime, and a pinch of salt, it's just incredibly powerful for your digestion. It's going to begin to awaken that acne. You can also drink CCF tea, which is cumin, coriander, and fennel seed tea. And that is a great tea to sip throughout the day to actually boost our digestive activity and keep our digestive fire just at the right place. We want that fire to burn, but we don't want it to burn our entire inner system, right? So we want to keep it tamed and controlled. The next thing is practice pranayama. Some of us are breathwork lovers and some of us are breath lovers. And if you're not, I invite you to join my cult of breathwork junkies. Learning the art of breathing slowly and deeply is of great use when calming the nervous system. We talked about that earlier. It would help in the decrease of stress and help with menopausal symptoms. And so if you're new to pranayama, I'd say start practicing Nadi Shodhana, which is the alternate nostril breathing. And practicing that daily for up to 20 minutes is great practice. This will help us balance the right and the left hemisphere of our brain, thus the feminine and masculine energy within our body mind, which helps tremendously with our hormonal health. We need these energies to be in balance so that they actually can support our transition through life. And the last thing is bathe yourself in moonlight. I know that it might sound a little woo-woo for some people, but that shit works. Spent summer night moon bathing. The direct illumination from the moon was traditionally used as a therapy to increase ojas and bring coolness into the body. So this is not only expected of you from now on, every time you're moving through your bleed, but also share this with every single woman out there, and especially those transitioning into their menopausal stages. It'll increase ojas, which is exactly what they need, and it will bring the body back into a state of balance. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about herbs, oils, and more support for our health. How are we doing so far? Any questions before we dive in? Yeah.
So you were saying just now, like bathing in the moon. Was it that particular point that you were saying to share and to do, or was it like everything?
Well, everything would be ideal, but that particular element of moon bathing when we are in our bleed is incredibly important, because that is governed by Pitta and the energy of the moon is cooling, but it's not overwhelmingly cooling. So it is perfect also for women transitioning into that Vata stage because it's going to support the cooling aspect that menopause brings.
And then also in the summer, because that's like Pitta.
Exactly. 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 Great question. Thank you. Anything else for anyone? Beautiful. So Ayurveda provides a rich and thorough body of herbal medicine knowledge as a powerful tool to achieve balance when we need it, which is literally every second. So we're going to talk a little bit about some herbs. I'm going to start to type them here on the chat so you can walk away with the names. First one, Shatavari, acts as a Pitta pacifying cooling herb, helps check bleeding, and balances the hormonal levels by activating prolactin hormone. It's going to nourish the uterus, regulate calcium metabolism, and bone compactness. It's going to help prevent hot flashes, the insomnia, and the potential osteoporosis that a lot of women go through. Send me the next one, Ashwagandha. It's going to help to maintain the balance of low levels of estrogen through testosterone in menopause. This is particularly great for women during their menopausal stages. I take it daily, personally. That is how I've managed to reach the goal of Ayurveda, which some of you already know. It is literally a perfect poop. Ashwagandha, the whole goal of life is to have the perfect poop. And that perfect poop is a right-shaped banana that floats. So both ashwagandha and triphala are going to super incredibly support that process. But ashwagandha is particularly amazing for women due to their menopausal stages because it's going to help with the regulation of the hormones that are going out of balance within that transition. You know, it also helps to maintain the fatty cushions to the reproductive organs. And so especially in the pussy, it's going to calm the mind and it's going to induce great sleep because of the sense of heaviness it provides, the lubrication it provides, which is ultimately what we need in order to have that ripe banana shaped poop also. Next. Yati's Mahadu is a source of progesterone, and in a very low dose, it is eucalyptic in action. This means is it's going to help balance Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. It's a tridoshic herb that Ayurveda recommends that women take daily for their hormonal support. Now, there are many good herbs in Ayurveda, like Ashoka Shal. We'll throw out, I'll type all of these out. Ashoka Shal, Lodra, Amla, Haldi. I know these names are like, what? They're all mostly Indian spices. And then Neem, which not only do the internal healing of women, but also increase the beauty and the grace and the radiance by giving nourishment, lubrication, and the nutrients that our skin and body need. And I'm talking strictly for the women's body. Foods like sesame seeds regulate the blood flow. So it's going to help us avoid the constriction due to the excess of air that leads to cramping in irregular periods when we are right before or the period prior to our bleed. And then avoiding fried, spicy, and oily foods is great and particularly suggested during our menstrual bleed. And I know that's all we crave for, most of us, but we must listen to the ability to discern rather than those impulse cravings. Such foods lead to bloating and constipation. These are Pitta aggravating. So they're going to be increasing that Pitta dosha, that fire and that stimulation, and thus it's going to be aggravating and throwing Vata out of whack. So during our stage of menstruation, you know, during that cycle within the space of ovulation, We want to favor warm, home-cooked, easy-to-digest foods. So think about this prior and during your bleed. This is what will regulate your Vatadosha, which is often the one that is enhanced during your bleed. And so oils to support our hormonal health. Some of them are clary sage that acts as an antidepressant and lowers blood pressure in some people. Clary sage is estrogen-like, and so it's a relaxant, and it's going to naturally balance our hormones. But it is labor-inducing, so be mindful that if you are closer to those, final stages of pregnancy, you are going to want to hold off from experiencing clary sage until the very moment of labor if you're having difficulty. Fennel reduces depression and anxiety by increasing serotonin. Fennel is an incredibly cooling herb. I find it that is the coolest plant or food out there in the world. The only thing that will bring an entirely out of whack Pitta person back into a state of balance just with one sitting feast. Juniper is thought to relieve pain through its anti-inflammatory reaction. Angelica reduces anxiety by stimulating serotonin. Geranium.
Could you say one? I missed like what you said, that you were like, it could bring somebody.
Fennel.
Fennel, okay.
Yeah, fennel is the coolest of all foods. It is literally like, if you're a Pitta, you must have that in your fridge at all times, especially during summertime. If you're not eating fennel.
Especially during what time?
During Pitta time, which is summertime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's, it's a cooling food. So fennel, it can be eaten by anybody. Just like in Ayurveda, the beauty is that everything is Ayurvedic because we are eating based on how we feel. We are engaging in activity based on how we feel. We are engaging in rest based on how we feel. So everything is medicinal. It's just a matter of knowing when and what the purpose is. And so fennel can be eaten by anybody. It's an incredibly cooling food. So if we're having a lot of acidity or heartburn or indigestion, fennel is an incredible cooling food to eat. And then also during our menstrual cycle, if we're experiencing a lot of irritation or leading up to the bleed, if we're experiencing a lot of irritation, a lot of anger, even rash and acne or flaring in our skin and blemishes, fennel is an incredible oil to use topically. Breathe it aromatically or consume it if it's high, pure therapeutic oil, like a doTERRA oil. Then I jumped onto juniper, which is thought to relieve pain because of its anti-inflammatory action. It's also another cooling oil. Inflammation is just excess of fire, excess of heat, excess of Pitta. So anything that is cooling will bring us back into balance. Angelica reduces anxiety by increasing and then stimulation serotonin release. Then we have geranium, which relieves depression, stimulates the adrenal cortex. So it is used to treat diseases in which hormonal balances are needed. We have rose, which I love, and it's really rare, especially pure, but it brings relaxation and pain relief by stimulating the release of endorphins. Some researchers have proposed that rose oil strengthens the uterus, potentially addressing menstrual cycle issues. And so in menopause, rose oil may improve the mood by reducing the heat that leads up to hot flashes and that discomfort that comes with the imbalance of our hormones. During menstruation, as rose is incredibly cooling, during the bleed, it can actually support the cramps or the inflammation and the bloating that we might be experiencing. And so rose oil, rose foods, rose itself, literally eating and consumed, is an incredible food to eat prior and during your bleed. Then we have neroli. It stimulates serotonin. It's going to be releasing serotonin, which is going to reduce anxiety, and it's in itself, it's an incredible oil and an incredible herb to promote sleep. It's a very heavy oil. It's very waxy. It comes from the bark of the tree. And so that heaviness is going to bring us back into that state of anxiety, which is a very Vata-like symptom. Vata, being air and flowy and subtle, is going to be balanced by its opposite mirror image, which is that heaviness that Kapha provides. Lavender, in the same way, also reduces stress, depression, and anxiety. And it is a cooling herb. It is a cooling oil. Well, it's a flower, it's not an herb. Jasmine can offer quick relief from some menstrual cramps and the backache that can come because it's anti-inflammatory. Its euphoric scent and also helps restore your confidence. And it is aphrodisiac, so it'll make you feel situated in your sensuality, in your womanhood. But just like clary sage, it is inducing labor. So the aroma of jasmine will facilitate childbirth by giving you strength to endure the pain.
I just want to say that is so true. I don't remember what oils I used, but when I was pregnant, I got a little oil blend that came with my birthing course that I took. I put it on and I gave birth 20 minutes later.
Nature is just, she's the bitch. She's the biggest bitch. She's amazing. And she's a shade. That's why I think so much for sharing. Jasmine also promotes natural balance of the hormones. So it's going to be improving our PMSing, our mood swings, and the hot flashes that are often experienced during our menstruation and hot flashes in menopause. And then lastly, I have Palmarosa, which is also great for hormones, and stabilizing the symptoms of premenstrual syndrome, and it's going to reduce the bloating that comes from hormonal imbalances. Now, in addition to specific herbal formulas, warm oil massage and warm nourishing food is a must. It is a must. The food must contain some fat in the form of oils or clarified butter, which is often called ghee, along with grains and minerals that actually gives us everything that we need to support our life force. During the stages of menstruation, during that end of bleed, and during the transition into menopause, it's preferable to stay away from a lot of sweets, but total abstinence is not allowed. My rule is 70-30. 70% of what you really, truly need, and 30% of what you really fucking want. Because we only live life sometimes. We only live that one life sometimes. When we're dicks and we didn't learn the lessons, we get to come back and do it all over again. Now, sour, bitter, and astringent tastes are really good. And almond milk blended with 2 pieces of date is a wonderful drink for rejuvenation when we're feeling sluggish, ungrounded, and in dis-ease. For massage, sesame oil is good for all types of women. However, mustard oil for Kapha type is preferred, and coconut or ghee for Pitta type women are particularly better. All food, exercise, our yoga or movement and body practices should always be chosen according to the essential timing, individual constitution, so your prakriti, and your current condition, as well as where you are in the world based on location. This can be discussed and of course explored deeper during an Ayurveda health consultation, which I provide. So if you're interested, we can chat about that outside of this course. Whatever the situation, women must always take into consideration their constitutional needs regarding diet, lifestyle, and rest. These are the pillars of Ayurveda. As a sister science to Ayurveda, yoga is going to offer many wonderful tools for balancing the doshas, as well as addressing specific female health conditions. And overall, meditation, self-study, self-reflection, pranayama, and breathwork, spiritual nourishment like chanting, or reading a really spiritually enriching book, or asana or embodied movement practices are important elements in a healthy woman regimen. For thousands of years, Ayurveda has provided a respectful and supportive approach for women in every single stage of her life for restoring and maintaining health by really maintaining the balance of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And it is said that when we restore this balance, we are going to feel strong and at ease in our body, healthy, inspired, and empowered in our minds, and connected in our soul's purpose. Ultimately, fucking satisfied in our lives. And so there is one more thing I want to mention revolving Ayurveda's rules. And it is that Ayurveda understands that everything is in a constant flux of change. And that also everything must move and flow. Everything must transition. And so neglecting or repressing our nature, emotions, and deepest desires as women will lead to disconnection or disassociation with an aspect of ourselves. And thus this will lead to an imbalance or disease. And so for women, we're looking to tend, nurture, honor, express, and fucking love all aspects of herself in a natural, holistic way. I would love to extend the invitation for you to join my upcoming hybrid coaching course called Rise, which is an online sacred container for the reclamation of self-harmony through understanding that Ayurveda really is here to imply a loving self-care and soul-centered model for you to tend to all aspects of yourself from your soul down and through the body and into the pussy. And so to share the list of herbs, I'm just going to copy paste them here so you have them. These are incredible at providing particular nutrients for the woman's body to support us through every single stage of our lives. So look into them and check in with yourself. What is happening with me? What am I experiencing in both mind, body, emotions, desires, and soul level? And looking into these herbs with that understanding and that knowledge will grant you that ability to discern what you need and what you should be inviting more of in your life. Now I'm gonna leave my website. This is a direct link to Rise if you're interested in reading more. And then through that, you can navigate everything else that I kind of do with my life. That's all I have for you today. Sorry I took an extra minute of your time, but I'm here if you have any questions.
As far as where to acquire such herbs, where do you start?
Banyan botanicals, baby. That is one. And then I would say looking up Divya Alter, going into her website, going into her restaurant, and buying what to eat for how you feel is going to change your life. Divya Alter is one of my Ayurvedic teachers. She is brilliant in making food that both nourishes the physical body, the mind, and the soul, and you feel it, and is a queen of understanding what to eat for how you feel so that you can support your entire movement through life and through womanhood based on what you need in each moment. Oh, I think I sent that to everybody. Any other questions? I would love to hear maybe a reflection or something that we're walking away with, if there's anything.
I was wondering if you have like a top oil, like essential oil for like anxiety for Vata type.
Yes.
Cool.
Copaiba and frankincense. So these two, oh, I'm not sending that to everybody. There we go. These two combined are incredibly grounding oils. They're both waxy out of resins of trees. So they're going to bring you back down to earth by providing the opposite quality of Vata. And so for anybody that feels a little bit, ungrounded or forgetful or anxious, which are all symptoms of high Vata, out of balance, Copaiba and frankincense, you'll even, like, as soon as you bring them into your life, you'll literally feel like you're in the forest just by taking a whiff of their smell. So literally will ground you back down. And if you have them as pure therapeutic grade A essential oils, you can take them internally. And particularly if you are prone to having these symptoms during your menstrual cycle or just overall generally in life, you're welcome to take them daily. I personally do, because I used to suffer from really severe anxiety. And as soon as I started to develop internally those coping mechanisms with the use of plant medicine, then we have a stronger ability to discern and a stronger ability to move through our life without having the need to depend on external, qualities or external tools. But they're here for us, right? They're here for us, and they're here for us to use as medicine when we need it. And that's ultimately, what life is really about. And that's really what strengthening our relationship with nature is about. Yeah. Anything else?
So for Pitta, most important, what I heard was fennel. Like, I need to be putting fennel in my life, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. So a few more for you if you are Pitta, dominant. Lavender, rose, fennel, cumin, coriander. These are great oils to use, great foods to invite in, great teas to drink for us. Like, I cannot live without that shit. And then in terms of food, coconut, cooling foods, coconut, avocados, cucumbers, and stay away for the most part, because again, 70-30, that's where balance exists, right? Shy away from acidic, bitter, really oily things. That is what Pitta is all about, right? And so we want to inch closer to Vata type food, right? And so again, if anybody is interested in moving through an Ayurvedic health consultation, I do private sessions, but also within the RISE course, you'll get a one-on-one private consultation with me, as well as an entire container of holding you while you move through the process of shifting more into an Ayurvedic lifestyle and just fucking figuring out what I really need in order to stay here and situated in my power. And so, yeah, I'm here to serve you. And from a very humble heart, I thank you for allowing me to share, because I really love this shit. So I hope it serves. Thank you all so much for being here. If there's anything, I'll stay for a few extra minutes if you need anything. Otherwise, I'll let you be.
Thank you very much.
Totally. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you. I love. Well, good to see you.
Good to see you. Can't wait to rise.
I know. Let's fucking rise, girl.
Next week.
Yeah. Good to see you, Kelly. Can I do anything for you?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Sound good. Well, to you, everybody. I hope you have an